As I stepped into the elevator, a man getting off whispered something strange to me. It was an ordinary day, the kind where you wouldn't expect anything out of the ordinary. But as I was about to discover, sometimes the most mundane settings can give birth to the most extraordinary experiences. The man, a stranger, had a knowing look in his eyes, a cryptic glint that seemed to hint at a secret only he was privy to. He leaned in closer, and his words, though hushed, cut through the silence like a knife. "Don't get off until the 9th floor," he advised, his tone grave and his expression serious. I was taken aback. An uncanny chill ran down my spine, a curious blend of confusion and intrigue. Why the 9th floor? What could possibly happen if I disregarded his advice? I found myself wrestling with a multitude of questions, my mind spinning in a whirl of what-ifs. But as I turned to ask him, he was already stepping out of the elevator, his figure gradually disappearing from my view. I watched him walk away, his words echoing in my mind. "Don't get off until the 9th floor." The elevator doors closed, and I was alone, the man's warning still fresh in my mind. My finger hovered over the panel, hesitating before pressing the button for the 2nd floor. The elevator hummed as it ascended, the digital display flickering ominously. The doors slid open to an eerily quiet hallway. A sudden chill ran down my spine, the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. I could hear a faint, distant echo of laughter, but there was no one in sight. I quickly pressed the button to close the doors. The journey to the 3rd floor was no less unsettling. As the doors opened, there was a loud, heart-stopping bang. It was as if something heavy had dropped onto the floor above. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I pressed the button and the doors slid shut again. The 4th floor was bathed in an unnatural, eerie glow. It was as if I had stepped into another dimension. The air seemed charged, and the hair on my arms stood up. I blinked, trying to make sense of what I was seeing before hastily pressing the button to close the doors. As I ascended to the 5th and 6th floors, I could feel a growing sense of unease. The air in the elevator felt heavy and oppressive. I could hear whispers as if there were unseen entities sharing the space with me. I could almost feel their breath on my neck. Their words indecipherable, but their tone ominous. The 7th floor was even more disconcerting. The lights flickered, casting an eerie dance of shadows on the walls. For a moment, I thought I saw a figure standing at the end of the hallway, but when I blinked, it was gone. The 8th floor was the most frightening of all. The sounds of footsteps echoed around me, growing louder with each passing second. I could feel a presence behind me, but when I turned, there was nothing there. The elevator doors closed, but not before I caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure in the hallway. Each floor was stranger than the last, and I was starting to believe that there was truth in the man's warning. Finally, the elevator reached the 9th floor. The doors slid open and my heart pounded in my chest, a cacophony of dread and anticipation. I was standing on the precipice of the unknown, the words of the man in the elevator echoing in my mind like a haunting refrain. "Don't get off until the 9th floor," he had said. It was a command, a warning, a plea. I hesitated, the fear a heavy weight in my stomach. I could feel the cold tendrils of doubt creeping in, whispering words of caution. But then I remembered the strange occurrences on the previous floors. The echoing laughter that was just a little too high-pitched, the flickering lights that danced like spectral waltzes, the sudden drop in temperature that made my breath visible in the air. All signs pointed to one thing. I needed to follow the man's advice. So I stepped out onto the 9th floor, my footsteps echoing ominously in the silence. The atmosphere was different here. It was as if the very air was charged with an unseen energy, a palpable sense of dread that hung heavy in the stillness. The lights here were dim, casting long and eerie shadows that seemed to writhe and twist in the corners of my vision. And the silence, it was a silence that seemed almost alive, a silence that whispered of unseen horrors, lurking just out of sight. It felt as though I was walking through a dreamscape, each step taking me further into the heart of a nightmare. I could feel the tension mounting, the dread creeping in, as if something was watching me from the shadows. I wanted to turn back, to run, but I knew I couldn't. I was in too deep. As I moved further into the 9th floor, the strange occurrences intensified. The lights flickered more violently, the temperature dropped even further, and the silence seemed to close in around me, suffocating and unyielding. I was trapped in this nightmare, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever escape. In a panic, I started pressing buttons, hoping to find a way out. With a racing heartbeat and sweat pouring down my face, I jabbed at the elevator buttons with a frantic desperation. The lights flickered above, casting eerie shadows that danced around the small, confined space. The elevator juddered to life, descending with a speed that made my stomach lurch. Each passing floor was a blur, the numbers on the display panel lighting up and dimming in quick succession. There was a sense of disorientation, a dizzying whirl of terror and confusion. Suddenly, the elevator came to a halt. My heart pounded in my chest like a drum as I braced myself for the unknown. The doors slid open and I was met with the familiar sight of the ground floor lobby. It was a sight for sore eyes. The mundane normality of it all, a stark contrast to the otherworldly ordeal I'd just endured. I stood there for a moment, the relief washing over me in waves. But it was a relief tainted with an undercurrent of lingering fear. Had I truly escaped the nightmarish journey? Or was this just a brief reprieve in a never-ending cycle of horror? Slowly, I stepped out of the elevator, my legs shaking with exhaustion. The cool air of the lobby brushed against my face, grounding me back in reality. I looked back at the elevator, its doors closing with a soft, ominous whisper. It was an ordinary elevator, yet it held secrets and terrors beyond my comprehension. I walked away, the chilling memory of the experience clinging to my consciousness like a shadow. There was a sense of freedom, yes, but it was a freedom tinged with the bitter aftertaste of fear. I was out of the elevator, out of the clutches of the unknown, but the experience had left an indelible mark on me. I stepped out of the elevator, finally free, but forever marked by the bizarre experience. I was back on the ground floor, but I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. The cold sweat on my brow, the rapid drumming of my heart, the disquieting silence. They all lingered, long after the elevator doors had shut behind me. I found myself standing there, questioning the reality of what I had just experienced. The strange events, the eerie coincidences, the cryptic warnings. Was it merely a figment of my imagination? A product of my tired mind? Or was it something more sinister, lurking in the shadows of the unknown? The questions were many, but the answers were elusive, leaving me with a sense of dread that was hard to shake off. This chilling encounter, as unsettling as it was, serves as a stark reminder of our inherent fear of the unknown. It's a primal instinct, a survival mechanism that warns us of potential dangers lurking in the shadows. It's a fear that's universally shared, a common thread that ties us all together, regardless of where we come from or who we are. As I walked away from the elevator, I couldn't help but wonder, am I truly free from the strange occurrences, or is this just the beginning?